Between 2018 and 2020, mountain monsters vanished without warning. No new episodes, no statements, no answers. For nearly 2 years, fans were left in silence, and the rumors grew darker with each passing month. Some said the network pulled funding. Others believed something happened deep in the Appalachian woods that no one was allowed to talk about. Now, whispers from inside the AIMS team are surfacing, and what they suggest is far more disturbing than any creature hunt. Make sure you're subscribed, because the truth about the lost season was never meant to reach the public. When Mountain Monsters aired its 5th season in early 2018, the AIMS team seemed unstoppable. Trapper, Buck, Huckleberry, Jeff, Willie, and Wild Bill were local legends by then. 6 Appalachian hunters chasing the unknown across miles of untamed wilderness. Fans tuned in, expecting another round of monster hunts, laughter, and campfire storytelling. But after the finale aired, something strange happened. Nothing. No promos for a new season, no interviews, no official announcements. The show went completely dark. At first, viewers assumed it was a normal production break, but months turned into a year, and then another. Emails to the network went unanswered. Cast appearances were canceled. Even reruns were quietly removed from schedules. It was as if Mountain Monsters had never existed. Then came the first whisper. A crew member's relative posting online that something had happened on the final expedition of 2018. She didn't say what, only that the men came back different. Local residents near Pendleton County, West Virginia, where the team had filmed their last hunt, began reporting unusual activity around the time of the show's disappearance. Strange lights in the trees, gunshots echoing at odd hours, and groups of men shouting deep in the forest long after midnight. The accounts matched the period the AIMS team was known to be on location. Theories spread like wildfire. Some claimed the network pulled the plug due to budget issues. Others insisted the cast refused to continue after a night that went wrong. The more people dug, the stranger it got. The final episode had ended on a cliffhanger. Trapper claiming the team was close to finding a creature called Spearfinger. But the search for Spearfinger was never concluded. The following spring, Discovery executives refused to comment on the show's future. Fans were left in total silence. No renewal, no cancellation, just an unexplained void. A 2-year blackout in which not one member of the AIMS team said a word about what happened. And for the first time since Mountain Monsters began, the hunters who'd always chased danger seemed to be hiding from it. The final confirmed shoot of Mountain Monsters took place in late 2018, somewhere in the highlands of southern West Virginia. Internally, the AIMS crew referred to the area as the Nest, a stretch of remote forest so dense that even GPS signals flickered in and out. Locals had been reporting something unusual for months. Howls that didn't match any known animal, trees split down the middle as if struck from within, and eerie mimicry, voices echoing through the night that sounded human but weren't. "It's not just watching," Trapper said in a behind-the-scenes interview that never aired. "It's talking back." That expedition was meant to close out the season, a dramatic all-night hunt to capture evidence of what witnesses called the Dark Thing. According to production notes recovered later, the crew began setup at 4 p.m. and launched thermal drones by 8 p.m. But around 10:47 p.m., the logs started showing strange activity. All 3 GPS trackers began shifting locations on their own, showing the team miles from where they actually stood. At 2:17 a.m., Jeff's radio crackled with static, followed by his panicked voice. 2 sets of eyes, red, watching the ridge. Then, silence. It took the rest of the crew 40 minutes to locate him. When they did, Jeff was sitting in the dark beside a creek, his equipment scattered. His GPS had factory reset, erasing all coordinates. His data drives were blank. When asked what happened, he could barely speak. "It got close," he muttered. "It was right there." The rest of the night was a blur. They regrouped at camp before sunrise, packed up, and drove off the mountain without filming another scene. Production officially ended the following week. The raw footage from that night was sent to Discovery's vaults and never seen again. Later, Buck described that night in one line that sent chills through fans. "We were hunting something. until it started hunting us. What happened after that night was never supposed to reach the public, but fragments have leaked from crew members who couldn't forget what they saw. According to one internal production memo, the final shoot ran several hours longer than scheduled because Huckleberry went missing. Around 3:30 a.m., his radio fell silent while tracking movement near the ridge. At first, the team assumed his battery had died, but when they triangulated his last known position, the signal kept bouncing, shifting several hundred feet every minute, as if he were moving too fast for anyone to follow. When they finally found him, nearly 5 hours later, he was standing alone in the fog, staring toward the tree line. His flashlight was still on, but dim, and his eyes looked glassy, unfocused. He didn't even know we were there, Buck later said. We called his name 3 times before he blinked. Huckleberry wouldn't explain what happened, only repeating, "I followed it too far." His GPS unit was dead, its internal clock reset to 00. Even the backup memory card inside was wiped clean. That was the turning point. Trapper ordered all equipment shut down. "We're pulling out," he said, according to an assistant camera operator. "Whatever's in these woods, it don't want to be filmed." Jeff smashed 2 trail cameras before leaving, muttering that he wasn't bringing that thing home. When they returned to the staging area, none of the footage from Huckleberry's camera would play. Each file ended in the same way, with a flash of static, followed by what one editor later described as a sound like breathing, but inside the mic. The following day, the AIMS team packed their gear and drove off without saying a word. They didn't even film a wrap-up segment, a first in the show's history. That missing footage, according to insiders, was quietly locked away and labeled unusable. And that was the last anyone saw of mountain monsters for almost 2 years. After the 2018 expedition abruptly ended, Mountain Monsters didn't just take a break, it vanished. No finale aired, no press statement followed, and not a single cast member addressed the fan. For months, the Destination America network, which had recently merged into Discovery, ignored every inquiry about the show's future. It wasn't an ordinary hiatus, it was a blackout, and inside sources say that the decision to bury Mountain Monsters came from the very top, the day after the crew returned from West Virginia. According to leaked internal memos, the footage from that final night was classified as restricted access, and only 2 senior editors were allowed to view it. Both left the project within weeks. Their exit reports mentioned audio inconsistencies, visual contamination, and one chilling line. Certain elements recorded on the thermal feeds are not consistent with any known biological form. The files were pulled, encrypted, and archived under a label never used for entertainment programming before: field material, unresolved. When production staff asked when editing would resume, Discovery executives issued a gag order. No one was to speak publicly about the West Virginia shoot under any circumstances. Within 48 hours, all unedited hard drives were collected by security contractors and flown to a private facility in Maryland. Crew members were told it was standard legal protocol, but no one had ever seen that level of caution for a reality show. "They treated it like classified footage," said one assistant editor, "like they'd stumbled onto something they didn't want the world to see." Meanwhile, the cast began to withdraw from public life. Jeff and Willie cut off contact entirely, while Buck and Huckleberry declined every interview. At local events, when fans asked about the show's status, they simply said, "We can't talk about it." One cameraman later admitted that, even off the record, the crew wouldn't discuss the footage. "It scared them," he said, "and not much scares those guys." Fans soon noticed something else. Mountain Monsters reruns were quietly disappearing from streaming services. Even older episodes that had aired for years were suddenly missing entire segments. Searches on the network's site redirected to unrelated titles. When journalists reached out for comment, Discovery's public relations team replied with a cryptic statement: "The AIMS team is taking a temporary hiatus due to production reevaluation." But behind closed doors, staff heard a different version. According to one anonymous network employee, Mountain Monsters wasn't canceled, it was quarantined. The footage wasn't unusable, the employee said. It was too real. Months later, one of the senior editors who had viewed the restricted material reportedly told a friend, If the public ever saw what was on those cameras, no one would set foot in those woods again. That's when the silence began to make sense. Whatever the AIMS team encountered that night, it didn't just end the season, it ended something much bigger. The network wasn't protecting its brand anymore, it was protecting people. The deeper insiders dug into the data from that final shoot, the stranger the technical anomalies became. Normally, a Mountain Monsters expedition would log dozens of readings, GPS routes, thermal footage, radio chatter, and hours of night vision video. But the West Virginia files were unlike anything the production team had ever seen. The metadata didn't add up, timestamps jumped backward, coordinates overlapped, and in several cases, the instruments appeared to record locations that didn't exist, places outside known topography. According to one internal report, all 3 GPS systems had glitched at once, displaying coordinates over 200 miles away, deep in Virginia. They were triangulating something that wasn't there, said a field tech who reviewed the logs. Drones deployed above the ridge dropped out of the sky seconds later, as if their navigation systems had been scrambled by an electromagnetic pulse. Even the main generator, a rugged industrial-grade unit meant to run non-stop for days, shut down without warning. When it came back online, its onboard clock had reset to 12 a.m. Then came the audio files. The sound engineer, a veteran of dozens of field shoots, said he'd never seen anything like it. The mics picked up this low hum, rhythmic, too steady to be natural, he explained later. It sounded almost like breathing through a machine. The tone was faint, below human hearing range, but powerful enough to distort nearby frequencies. When he tried to play it back at the studio, the entire workstation froze. That portion of the recording has never been recovered. The thermal readings were even more disturbing. On one of the handheld units, an enormous heat signature appeared for less than 3 seconds, 9 feet tall, bipedal, and radiating far above body temperature. The operator swore it moved between trees faster than any human could sprint, but when the data transferred to a backup drive, the image was gone. Not corrupted, deleted. Someone or something had overwritten it. Even stranger, the motion sensors set along the perimeter recorded multiple moving entities circling the crew's location. They weren't random, said one analyst who later studied the patterns. It's like they were moving tactically, flanking. When the field team returned from the mountains, their equipment was in shambles. Cameras refused to power on. Memory cards were blank. One of the crew's laptops wouldn't boot at all, showing only a black screen with white static. After the shutdown, one technician quietly copied what little remained of the thermal scans to a personal drive, a breach of protocol that later got him fired. Before leaving, he told a colleague, "You can't delete what we saw. You can only hide it." The surviving fragments of that data have never resurfaced publicly, but the rumors persist. Those who viewed it described it the same way: distorted sounds, glitched coordinates, and a faint figure watching from the tree line. Whatever happened that night didn't just crash their equipment, it rewrote it. And for the AIMS team, that was the moment when Mountain Monsters stopped being television and became something else entirely. When the AIMS team came down from the mountains that morning, they didn't just look exhausted, they looked broken. What had started as another night chasing folklore had ended in something that left even the toughest among them shaken to their core. Discovery offered counseling and debriefing sessions, but only a few attended. The rest vanished into their own corners of Appalachia, trying to forget. It wasn't just fear, one producer later said. It was like they'd all brought something back with them. Jeff was the first to change. Normally upbeat and analytical, he began refusing to enter wooded areas, even during the day. His wife reportedly found him sitting on their porch one night, staring into the forest for hours, muttering, "It's still out there." He claimed he could hear the same faint hum they'd recorded on the lost footage, like a heartbeat pulsing through the trees. Willie, the team's trap builder, started hearing whispers whenever he worked alone in his shop. At first, he thought it was just exhaustion, but he swore the voices were calling his name. Slow, drawn out, almost mocking. He dismantled his entire workshop a few months later. "I'm done building things to catch monsters," he told a friend. "It feels like I already did." Huckleberry, who had gone missing that night, suffered the worst. Friends said he was jumpy, paranoid, and avoided eye contact. He stopped sleeping in his house and spent nights on his porch with a shotgun across his lap. When asked what happened in the woods, he would only say, "It followed me back." Even Buck, the heart of the team, seemed changed. During one failed attempt to resume filming, he told a producer, "You can't chase shadows when you already live in one." He'd always been the one to push the crew forward, but after the lost season, he was the one asking to go home. The most unsettling of all came from Trapper, the team's leader. Already struggling with illness, he refused interviews entirely and warned the others to stay silent. "You think the monsters are the danger," he told them, "but it's what comes after that's worse." For nearly 2 years, none of them spoke publicly. They turned down every media appearance, ignored fan questions, and stopped attending conventions. Those who knew them best said it wasn't just NDA pressure, it was trauma. "They weren't the same men," said a camera operator. "They went into those woods looking for answers and came back afraid of the question." By the end of 2019, the AIMS team wasn't just on hiatus. It was fractured. They'd built their lives on tracking what others feared, but whatever they encountered in those mountains didn't want to be found, and it made sure they never went looking again. Rumors about the lost mountain monsters footage began spreading in late 2019, when an anonymous post appeared on a cryptid research forum claiming to have seen something the network buried. The user described a short, uncut thermal clip from the team's final night, and what it showed wasn't a blurry outline or shadow. It was a figure, 9 feet tall, upright, standing perfectly still at the edge of the frame, its heat signature pulsing like it was breathing. The poster said it wasn't running or hiding, it was waiting. Within hours, the thread vanished, deleted by moderators who later claimed they'd been contacted by Discovery's legal team, but screenshots spread anyway. The still image showed glowing amber eyes and a long, angular frame that didn't match any known primate. One editor who'd worked on the show confirmed privately that the leaked image looked nearly identical to what he'd seen before quitting the project. "It wasn't Bigfoot," he said. "Whatever that thing was, it looked thinner, almost human, but wrong." The footage, according to insiders, had been smuggled out by a camera operator who refused to let the evidence die. He allegedly copied it to a personal drive before Discovery's security team seized the rest. When questioned, he denied everything, but co-workers recalled him saying, "Some truths don't belong to corporations." That copy has never surfaced again, but its existence continues to haunt fans and former staff alike. One network technician later admitted the original files had been purged from every server. "You don't erase footage because it's boring," he said. "You erase it because it's real." From that point on, anyone who mentioned the lost season risked termination. Editors were reassigned, and all internal archives referencing the 2018 expedition were labeled unverified assets. Whatever the AIMS team captured that night, it wasn't a myth. It was evidence someone decided the world should never see. When Mountain Monsters finally returned in early 2021, fans were relieved, but longtime viewers could feel something was off immediately. The show looked familiar on the surface. Same music, same format, same wild hunts through the Appalachian night. But underneath the laughter and banter, there was a heaviness that hadn't been there before. The energy was gone. The AIMS team wasn't chasing legends anymore. They were avoiding them. For the first time, the series never mentioned the events of 2018 or the missing 2 years. It was as if that entire chapter had been erased. The hunts were shorter, the tone lighter, and the show never returned to the same West Virginia location. When fans asked why, Buck gave a cryptic answer during a convention appearance: "We don't go back there. The woods don't forget." That single line reignited all the old theories that something in those mountains had driven them away. Even on camera, the team seemed changed. Jeff stayed quiet, rarely handling tech equipment. Willie kept to building traps, but avoided working alone. Huckleberry, once the group's fearless enforcer, looked distracted, always scanning the tree line like he was expecting something to step out. And Trapper, whose health was failing, refused to address what had happened. In one behind-the-scenes moment that never aired publicly, he reportedly said, "We found what we were looking for." That's why we stopped. Off-screen, things were stranger still. Crew members said production rules had changed. No night shoots without multiple generators, no more isolated camps, and all recordings were sent directly to Discovery's new encrypted server. It wasn't about quality control, said one cameraman. It was about control, period. Viewers who paid attention noticed the small cracks, missing timestamps, cut dialogue, and references to that night, quickly edited out. Something had left its mark on Mountain Monsters, and even though the show came back, the spirit of the hunt didn't. Whatever the AIMS team encountered in those lost woods, it followed them home, and the return of the series felt less like a comeback and more like a warning. To this day, no one knows what really happened during Mountain Monsters' lost season. The AIMS team never spoke about it, and Discovery buried every trace. Trapper took the truth to his grave, and the others changed forever. Locals still whisper about a section of forest where GPS fails, and voices echo through the trees. Some say the lost footage still exists, hidden away. When asked what it showed, one former producer said only, "They weren't alone. Whatever the team found in those mountains, it ended the hunt and left the woods watching ever since."